My name is Charlene Amendola, and welcome to History in the Kitchen. I am so glad that you could join me today. Today, we will be talking about the history of Hispanic Heritage Month, and we'll be making pastelitos de guayaba. I am very excited to be making this, and as a preface, before we begin, I am not of Hispanic or Latino heritage, nor am I a Spanish speaker, so I am going to do my very best with pronunciations. Please forgive me if I mispronounce anything, and know that I am trying my best. So you might be wondering, why Hispanic Heritage Month if I am not Latina, nor am I Hispanic? And the reason why I want to focus on Hispanic Heritage Month is because it is important that we celebrate all people's cultures. Everyone's culture is beautiful, everyone's culture is wonderful, and even though we are all human, it's our differences, it's our cultures and differences that make us unique and able to appreciate one another. And I really am very excited about talking about Hispanic Heritage Month with you today. So Hispanic Heritage Month has not yet started in the United States. It doesn't start until September 15th, so we're really close, and it ends on October 15th. Hispanic Heritage Month honors the cultures and contributions of Hispanic and Latino Americans. There's lots of diversity among Hispanic and Latino Americans, and this diversity is honored during that month. We honor the culture, and we also honor the past influences of past generations of Spain, Mexico, the Caribbean, Central, and South America. The celebration starts mid-month. Like I said, it starts November 15th. So why not just start it on the first of the month and end it at the end? And there's actually a really good reason for that. September 15th celebrates the independence of Costa Rica and Nicaragua and El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala. September 16th is Mexico's Independence Day. Chile's Independence Day is the 18th, and Belize's Independence Day is the 21st of September. So there are a lot of celebrations going on in lots of these countries for independence from their colonizers. So let's take a look at where in the world we are when we're talking about Hispanic and Latino people. Actually, first, let's talk about the difference between Hispanic and Latino, because that's really important. They are not interchangeable. You cannot use them interchangeably. Hispanic refers to a language group, people who speak Spanish. Latino or Latina, or the gender-neutral Latinx, refers to a geographic area. Hispanic is someone, you would describe someone as Hispanic if they come from or are a descendant of someone from a Spanish-speaking country. Someone is Latino, Latina, or Latinx if they are from or are a descendant of someone from any Latin American country. A person can be Hispanic and Latino, but not all Latinos are Hispanic. For example, Brazilians are Latino because they come from South America, the geographic area. However, their native language is not Spanish, therefore they are not Hispanic. Conversely, people who are from Spain, Spaniards, are Hispanic, but they are not from any Latin American country, therefore they are not Latino. So there's a difference between those two terms. We cannot use them interchangeably. So let's take a look at our geographic areas, at our Hispanic countries versus our Latin American countries. And for that, I'm gonna go grab my friend, the globe. So Ryan, my son, let me borrow this. He was very generous. And also, please note that I'm working on a mirror, so if I have a hard time finding countries, it's not because I don't know where they are, it's because I'm trying to work with the camera here. All right, so Hispanic countries include Spain. So Spain is all the way over here in Europe. And then also includes countries in South America, in the Caribbean, and in Central America. So from Mexico all the way down to the tip of Argentina and Chile. Okay? Latin American countries do not include Spain. So Spain is not a Latin American country. It is in Europe. And remember, when we're talking about Latin America, we're talking about Latino, Latina, and Latinx. We are talking about a geographic area. This is the geographic area of Latinx people, right here. So it's important that we know those differences. And I think that's really exciting. And also what's really exciting is that there is a huge amount of diversity in the Hispanic and Latinx populations. So when I was choosing a recipe, there were similarities certainly, but I ended up choosing a recipe that is native to Cuba, but there are lots of Latin American countries that make the same type of recipe. The Hispanic population in the United States is the second fastest growing ethnic group according to the U.S. Census, and they make up 18% of the population. So why should we not celebrate 18% of our population? Hispanic Heritage Month actually started as Hispanic Heritage Week, so it was expanded from a week to a month in the 1980s, but it started out as Hispanic Heritage Week by Lyndon B. Johnson in 1968. Congress ended up expanding it in 1989 after it was made into public law in 1988 under Reagan, and then George Bush, the first George Bush, made it into an entire month. So the reason why it expanded from a week to a month is because a California representative by the name of Esteban Tomez suggested a month so that the nation had time to prepare celebrations and also properly prepare events, because there are lots of really fun things that happen during Hispanic Heritage Month, and we will talk about ways that you can celebrate besides making delicious food during History in the Kitchen today. If you are just joining us, welcome. Thank you so much for coming to this week's History in the Kitchen. I'm Cheryl Ann Amendola, and if you would like to, you can follow me at teachinghistoryherway.com. That's my blog where I post about the history that I talk about, and I give you the recipes, and I also do some history lessons for you. You can find out what's going on in my classroom. You can follow me on Instagram, Teaching History Her Way, Twitter, History Her Way, or even YouTube, Teaching History Her Way. So I would love it if you followed me so that we could share history together all the time, all year long. And if you would like, you can share this video with your friends so that they can come and cook with us today and learn about Hispanic Heritage Month as well. All right, so for pastelitos de guayaba y queso, because there is cheese in there, you are going to need the following ingredients. One, you need cream cheese, and it needs to be room temperature. Mine's still a little bit chilly, but I think it'll do. Okay, 8 ounces of cream cheese, so that's one package typically. You need 1/3 cup of powdered sugar. Got my powdered sugar in here. You need 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract to make this recipe. 1/4 teaspoon of salt. So please don't use this whole thing because this is not a 1/4 teaspoon. In case you were wondering, this is a 1/4 teaspoon. Okay. You need 6 ounces of guava paste, and you're going to cut them into 1/4-inch pieces or 1/2-inch pieces. So here are my slices. They're probably going to be a little bit long for my pastry, so I'm going to have to cut them a little bit more. And it's very, very sticky, so just don't be surprised if you've never touched it before or if you've never handled this before. You're going to have to wash your hands when you're done, even though you've already washed your hands before you cooked, because that is the sanitary thing to do. All right, you need 1 tablespoon of flour to dust the counter. That's how you're going to use your puff pastry. Your puff pastry needs to be thawed. You can thaw this in the microwave. I think if you give it 30 seconds, that's good. Or if you were prepared for this, 40 minutes outside of the refrigerator will thaw it. It just needs to be able to open easily. Mine is almost there, okay? You need 1 egg, and this is going to be, the egg, you're going to use it by like painting it. So make sure you beat the egg. So there you go, we have 1 beaten egg. And if you would like to, you can put some sugar on the top, sanding sugar if you happen to have it around or if you can find it. I'm not sure if I'm gonna put sugar on the top, we'll see. Right now, what you should do first is you should heat your oven to 400 degrees and line a baking sheet with parchment paper because we don't want this yummy deliciousness to stick to the pan, okay? All right, if you have a stand mixer, you're gonna wanna use your stand mixer. I love my stand mixer, it's pink. If you don't have a stand mixer, it's not impossible to do this with a hand mixer, okay? So let's get started, and as we're cooking, we'll talk a little bit more about the origins of Hispanic Heritage Month. All right, so first thing that we need to do is we need to add the cream cheese to the bowl in the stand mixer. So let's open this up. So while we're talking, before we get into any more of the history of Hispanic Heritage Month, and I promise you I have lots, I had a caffeinated beverage prior to going to bed last night, and for anybody who knows me, I can't have a caffeinated beverage like ever. I don't know if you noticed, but I'm a little bit on the energetic side. So I couldn't sleep, and what did I do? I researched Hispanic Heritage Month some more, and I found out some really cool stuff. So some ways that you can celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month is you can do what I'm doing, and you can cook Hispanic food, or if you're not a chef, you can support a Hispanic or Latino restaurant. Noches de Colombia is one of my favorites in town. And you can also buy from a Hispanic or Latino business. And I have a plug for a product that I really like. It's not sponsored at all. I do this for free because I just like doing it, but I really like the product. All right, once you have your cream cheese in there, you are going to put your 1/4 teaspoon of salt in with the cream cheese. Probably not the best idea to pour it over the bowl in case you slip, so don't follow that technique. And we are going to use our paddle attachment to cream the cheese. So that's going to be about a minute. And while we're waiting for the cream cheese to cream, we'll take a 1/4 cup. We'll prepare our 1/4 cup of powdered sugar. All right. That's good. Okay, that's not taking too long. And the reason it doesn't take too long is because we were prepared with room temperature cream cheese. All right, so President Lyndon Johnson, who signed Hispanic Heritage Week into law, made a proclamation in 1969. I have the primary source here for you. In case you're not sure what a primary source is, it is from the era. It's something that Lyndon B. Johnson actually said. So he said that he was wishing to pay special tribute to Hispanic tradition and having in mind the fact that our 5 Central American neighbors celebrate their Independence Day on the 15th of September, the Republic of Mexico on the 16th, the Congress, by House Joint Resolution 1299, has resolved the President to issue annually a proclamation designating the week, including September 15th and September 16th, as National Hispanic Heritage Week. It was first introduced, though, by a man named George E. Brown. He was a California congressman, and he pushed it in 1968 to recognize the contributions of basically his constituents. He wanted to recognize the contributions of the Latinx community, and those contributions, the push for Hispanic Heritage Month, actually happened during the Civil Rights Movement in the 60s. So that's why we ended up with Hispanic Heritage Week then, and then by the time we get to the 1980s, we have Hispanic Heritage Month. All right, let's put in our powdered sugar. Okay. And I'm going to keep my recipe close by. All right, and we need to put the vanilla extract in too. That's 2 tablespoons of vanilla extract. Sticking to the sides of the bowl, just give it a little push down. Fun story, when I was a kid, I was trying to make something at my mom's house, totally broke her mixer. Sorry, Mom. But today, I'm not going to break the mixer because I learned not to do that. Okay. I finally bought her a new mixer like 5 years ago, and I think I broke it when I was 10. All right, we're going to let that keep mixing for a moment. So, where does the name Hispanic Heritage Month come from? How did we get this word Hispanic? The New York Times actually did a really great article about this and about the changing ways that Hispanic Heritage Month is celebrated. So basically, in 1970, there was a census. Every 10 years, there was a census. This year, the 2020 census is going on now. Please make sure that you fill out your census. Super important for representation and funding, so make sure you're filling out your census. In 1970, the census undercounted the Latinx population. So the Census Bureau developed a Spanish origins committee. And this Spanish origins committee was supposed to debate how to address the issue of miscounting Latino people. And they debated this, and it was a huge debate over what to put on the census and how to count people who were of Spanish and Latino origin. So they weren't sure if they should focus on language. They weren't sure if they should focus on race. They weren't sure if they should focus on when naming when coming up with the name, if they should focus on a shared experience of colonization, because Latin American countries were colonized by Spain, by Portugal. So they weren't sure where they wanted to go with trying to figure out how to count people. So some felt that focusing on language connected them too much to their European colonizers. And also, like I said, there's a lot of diversity in Hispanic and Latinx culture. So there were also generations of people from New Mexico. They called themselves Hispanos, and they cherished their Spanish heritage, and they also cherished their Apache, Comanche, Pueblo, or other indigenous cultures. So there's a lot going on in 1970 when trying to figure out how to count people and how to count them in the best way to represent them. So many people actually claimed their European Spanish ancestry to avoid Jim Crow laws, because Jim Crow laws also included people of Latino culture. So Hispanic was actually presented as the term as an English language parallel to the New Mexican Hispano to include dozens of identities as a compromise in 1980. So the word Hispanic was a compromise between people on a Census Bureau committee. And but since then, since the 1980s or the 1970s, excuse me, Latino people, or Latinx if we want to be gender inclusive, that term has been more widely adopted as people question Hispanic, because some people feel that the word Hispanic ignores different roots, particularly people who are of Latino and Black, or Latino and indigenous cultures, or background, excuse me. So Hispanic Heritage Month, there was a lot of thought that went into it, and there's still a lot of thought that goes into the term Hispanic and Latino now. Because while there are lots of shared traditions, each culture itself is unique and beautiful on its own and deserves to be celebrated and recognized. All right, so next step, now that we've done our cream cheese filling, our next step is to put it in an icing bag. If you don't have one of these, don't panic. You can use a Ziploc bag, and you just cut off the corner, and you can squeeze from the corner of the bag. All right, here's a tip. When you're filling an icing bag, whether you're using this or you're using anything else, don't fill it this way, and don't fill it all the way up. If you fill it all the way to the top, it's hard to squeeze and it's hard to control. And if you fill it while it's open, it's hard to actually get it in. So what you're going to do is you're going to fold it halfway down and then open it up this way, and you'll put your hands inside the little cuff, and this is how you're going to fill it. Okay, so I seem to have lost my little, nope, there it is. Okay, so we're going to take a tiny spatula. We're going to scoop this icing, which smells so good. It's a really sweet smell, and I know this is going to be absolutely delicious. We're going to take this looks like it might be about a half a cup. Make sure this is open. I'm actually going to take a little bit less. And we're going to put it in, use our finger to get it off of the spatula. So we'll put it in here, and then use our finger to pull it off. And I'm going to put in a little bit more. Now you can always go back and refill the bag, but if you put too much icing in and your bag pops, you can't. So then we'll pull it up, and then when we're ready, we'll push it down. Okay, so we're going to put that off to the side, and we're going to lightly flour the counter. Okay, that's lightly floured, I think. Okay. Black Teaching History Her Way t-shirt doesn't really work with flour, but we'll deal with it. Okay, so we have our lightly floured surface, and we're going to take our puff pastry. Puff pastry is a finicky fellow, so just be really careful when you're using it. Don't break it. If it's not ready to be unfolded, give it another minute to thaw. So we're going to roll the puff pastry out. Okay, comes out very easily. Take off the wax paper. You can't bake it with the wax paper. Okay, and we are going to cut. It's about an eighth of an inch anyway. This is Pepperidge Farm. Pepperidge Farm came out great. Okay, and we're going to cut them into equal squares or rectangles. So what I might do is I'm going to take a piece of my guava paste that I cut, and I'm going to try and cut it to the length of my guava piece. A little bit longer because we're going to have to stick them together. Okay, I actually think that might be a little too long. Have to make a baking decision here. So let's see. Yeah, we'll cut it. We're going to cut these rectangles into squares, and I'm going to cut it a little bit smaller. So now my guava paste looks like this. Okay. And I'm going to cut another one. And then I'll do the exact same thing with the other piece of dough eventually. All right, so we're going to take 6 of these squares and put them on our parchment paper. I'm so excited. And if they're not exactly the same size, you can always cut them again. It's not a big deal. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. I don't want to use that one. 4, 5, and 6. Okay, these two kind of go together. These two kind of go together. Perfect. All right. So once I have my 6 squares on the parchment paper, I'm going to pipe a thin layer of the cream cheese mixture onto each square. And, all right, let's see. So here we go with our piping bag. So bear with me. So Hispanic Heritage Month is actually celebrated also by the U.S. Army, which I think is super cool, and by the U.S. Navy. The U.S. Army commemorates the contributions of Hispanic people. In 2018, there were actually 136,000 Hispanic people serving in the United States Army. That's 18.8% of the Army that is Hispanic American, which is pretty cool. The Navy also celebrates its 59,000 Hispanic sailors. And the Medal of Honor, pretty big deal, was given to 61 Hispanic service people. Now you don't want to bring it all the way to the edge, because if you bring it all the way to the edge, you're not going to have a way to close the pastry. Okay, I'm going to move these squares out of the way so I can get this closer to you. All right, so you'll notice that I'm concentrating really hard because I don't want to mess this up. All right, there we go. So I'm piping my layer of cream cheese. Now, if you overfill these, that's awesome, because that means you have more filling to enjoy. So it's really, really okay if you put these in the oven and the stuff comes out of it a little bit, and the filling comes out of it a little bit. 2 and 3. And push this down some more. 1, 2, 3. All right, so take a look. This is what we have going on here. All right, now once I have my cream cheese mixture on each square, I'm leaving a little bit of space on each edge. I did a little bit better on some of them than I did on others. And then I am going to place the guava paste slices on top of the cream cheese. And I'm going to cut it if I need to maintain a clear edge, which I did with a couple of them, but not with all of them. So I'm going to cut them in half. So here's my guava slice. All right. Yum-o. I'm very excited to eat these. Now, these take 25 minutes in the oven. So, and you'll take them out when they are golden brown. All right. Now, the next piece of this is I need to brush the edges with egg. The egg is going to be my glue. So let's get a brush. And we'll brush the edges with the egg, like this. Let me see. Now you can see it. All right. So let's brush those edges. Now, if you are interested in Hispanic arts and culture, there are a lot of really great websites that you can check out. You can check to see if the museums around you have reopened, but if they have not, or if you're not ready to travel, that is not going to impede your learning about Hispanic arts and culture. You can check out the Library of Congress's website, loc.gov. They have a lot going on. You can also check out the National Archives. The National Endowment for the Humanities has stuff going on for Hispanic Heritage Month. The National Gallery of Art always has something some wonderful wonderful programming, and a lot of this programming is online and it's available to you that way because you might not have another way to access it this time. You can also check out the National Park Service. The National Park Service has some cool stuff going on their websites. I checked them out last night. And you can also check out the Smithsonian. And those places are where I got a lot of the information for today's program too. There's a lot to Hispanic Heritage Month. So depending on what kind of history you like or what kind of art you like, there is something for everybody to find out. So some other ways that you can celebrate is by listening to Latino artists. And there is the Calle Ocho Festival on October 4th. Usually that's in person, but it's online this year. So you can go, you can give that a Google. And you can also take a look at the Hispanic Museum and Library. They have some virtual events and exhibits. And you can read some books by Latinx writers. So the one that I have on my list is called I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican by Erica Sanchez. And it's a National Book Award finalist. It's about two sisters, one who's alive, one who is not. And the one who is alive feels like she needs to measure up to her dead sister. So I'm very excited to read I Am Not Your Perfect Mexican. All right, now we're going to press these together. And that egg is going to act as the glue. And then we're going to use a sharp knife to cut the edges so that they line up. So we're going to be as exact as we can. And we're making, and it should look like this cute little pocket. Look how cute it is. So let's do the rest together. And also I told you I wanted to tell you about one of my favorite Hispanic businesses. Last year, one of my students actually gave me soap and a lip gloss from there. It's called Tia, spelled T-A-I. I'm not sure if you can see that. And their website is tiahandmadesoaps.com. If you want to support a Hispanic business, this is a good one. I love this, and I also love their soap. It smells really, really good. And like I said, they're not paying me to say that. I actually just really like the product. All right, so let's finish this up. Stick these together. I really hope you enjoy these, and I hope that you'll send me a picture of your completed product when you're done. I would love to see how they look. I've cut these squares pretty good, or pretty well if we're going to be grammatically correct. All right. And then last one. Okay, and let's square this one up. Okay. Okay, now once we have, oh, I've got one more. Silly me. All right, once we have our pockets all set, we're gonna brush the top with egg again. So let's give these a good brush. And I will post pictures of what mine look like at the end too. I did not test kitchen these. School opened this week, so I didn't get a chance to do test kitchen on these. But I was also pretty confident that I would be able to make them. So the recipe that I got this from, recipe from a baker who is native to Los Angeles. It's called the Preppy Kitchen, if you want to take a look at his stuff. All right, there we go. And I was looking for a recipe that was not adapted. I wanted to make sure that I was making something authentic, and this is what I found. But it also needed to be, I needed to be able to make it in 30 minutes. And also, if I have any students that join me, I wanted it to be easy enough for them to make. Not that I'm saying that they can't, but a lot of our students and a lot of our viewers are beginner chefs. So, all right. I should not be dropping eggs, so before I put this in the oven, I am going to wipe it. Okay, just gonna clean this up because I don't want the egg to be there while I'm baking, or at least not all over the place. All right, so now I'm gonna bake these for about 15 minutes until they're puffed up and brown. Make sure you watch your oven. Every oven does these differently, bakes differently, and you don't want to burn your puff pastry, because then I think you'll be sad because you won't be able to eat these. All right, so put in the oven. And we put the timer on for 15 minutes. So don't worry about the filling. Put as much filling in there as you want. If it leaks out, it's not a huge deal. Now you could cut the tops of those if you want to in the same way, like score it so that it like can steam, but that will affect the puffiness of the pastry. So if you want it to be extra puffy, then make sure you don't do that scoring. And remember, you can put a little sugar on top if you choose to. I chose not to because I think it's gonna be sweet enough. And that is my pastelitos de guayaba, and I cannot wait to show you them when they're done. But more than that, I can't wait to eat them. Despite the fact that I'm lactose intolerant, I think I'm going to take a chance on these because they taste so good. So I hope that you learned something about Hispanic Heritage Month today. I hope you learned about its origins. I hope you learned about the difference between Hispanic and Latino. Once again, Hispanic is language origin, so it includes people from Central and South America and the Caribbean, but it also includes people who have origins in Spain. So it's Hispanic as a language group, whereas Latino, Latina, and the gender inclusive, Latinx, that is a geographic area, and that is Central, South, and Central and South America and the Caribbean. I also hope that you will take some time to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month yourself and with your family. If you're a teacher, I hope that you will celebrate it with your students. There are a lot of really amazing Hispanic contributions that you can take a look at, and that is what History in the Kitchen is going to be looking at between September 15th and October 15th. So next week, you will be in for a treat with either Hispanic or a Latino lesson. So I'm very excited about Latino or Hispanic history. I haven't decided which I'm going to do yet because there is so much to cover, way more than can be covered in a month. And I also really hope that in celebrating, you will let other people know that you're celebrating too, so that they too can understand that history is made by people of every shade, and that despite the fact that we are all human, we aren't all the same, and that's what makes us really awesome. So signing off for this week with History in the Kitchen. Please give me a follow, give this video a share so that other people can learn about Hispanic Heritage Month also. And I hope to see you same time, same place next week, Saturday at 3 for History in the Kitchen. Have a wonderful afternoon and enjoy your pastelitos de guayaba.